Welcome back to Discovering Your Mission. I'm your host, Dr. Mordecai. And today's conversation is one that sits at the center of where education, workforce, and equity meet. Across the country, millions of people are asking a question, but an urgent question. How do I build a better life for myself and my family in an economy that is changing faster than ever before? The answer increasingly is found in skills, in opportunity, and in systems that are designed to lift people, not leave them behind. That's why today I'm honored to be joined by Brooke DeRenzis, the CEO of National Skills Coalition, a national organization leading the charge to ensure that working people, small businesses, and communities have access to the skills, training, and education they need to thrive. Brooke brings both national policy leadership and a deeply personal story to this work. In this conversation, we talk about skills-based hiring, the future of higher education, working learners, equity, and what it really means to invest in human capital. This episode is made possible by our sponsor, the EDU Ledger. Let's get started. Greetings, everyone. It's Dr. Mordecai. Once again, I am here with our special guest on today, Brooke DeRenzis, our CEO of National Skills Coalition. Brooke, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me today, Mordecai.
Absolutely. It's an honor. I tell you, you're doing so much on the national scale, especially in policy. So it's always a great thing to be able to catch people like yourself and to have conversations and just learn so much because of what you're doing at such a large scale. And I'm sure the audience will appreciate your wisdom. So I'll just jump right into this first question, Brooke. Can you help us understand what is National Skills Coalition?
Yeah, so as our name suggests, we're a national coalition, a broad-based coalition that advocates for an inclusive, high-quality skills training commitment nationally and across states. So we think that jobs that require skills training are the backbone of our economy, and we should be investing in people's access to those jobs and those jobs themselves.
There is so much going on right now in our country in conversations. Workforce Pell is certainly one of those hot topics in conversations, but also thinking about the rejuvenation of institutional missions, the kind of programs that they're delivering, the responsiveness and the needs of higher education to meet the needs of business and industry, but for the greater good of the country. What are you seeing, if I ask you this broad question, what are you seeing at a national scale from higher education and the work that the coalition is currently leading right now?
Yeah, so higher education is key to unlocking opportunity for people and for our economy, right? I think higher education has always played a key role in unlocking opportunity and making sure that people in the United States, small businesses in the United States, communities throughout the country can have shared prosperity as our country grows. And some of the work that we are doing at National Skills Coalition is thinking about how to make higher education work better for working people, right? So working adults have become a growing portion of who is pursuing higher education as the economy changes. People are looking particularly to community and technical colleges to upgrade their skills, to change careers, to advance within their jobs. And they're doing all of that oftentimes while they're raising families, caring for people in their family, and working jobs at the same time. And so how can we really support the needs of working people who are pursuing higher education, skills training at community and technical colleges to advance in their careers as they take that on?
Now, I've got to ask, where does this passion come from for you? Because I can hear the passion, the desire to want to do this work. Where does that come from?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I think it comes from so many places, including, we at National Skills Coalition, as I mentioned, we're a broad-based coalition, but our coalition includes students and workers themselves. It includes small business owners who are building their businesses in their communities and hiring locally. And it includes practitioners, including so many college leaders. And so I get the passion from talking to them day in and day out about the work that they're trying to do, what their dreams and their goals are. But I also get passion for this work because of my own personal story and personal experience. I grew up in a very working class town in Pennsylvania, in eastern Pennsylvania. My parents were both public school teachers. My neighbors worked at places like construction sites and in hospitals and, at manufacturing plants. And so I got to see that those jobs that require skills training are absolutely essential to the work that we do every day in our communities, to the running of our everyday lives. They demand dignity and respect. And I also got to see the way that education and training can really open doors to opportunity. My family also would tell the story of my grandfather's journey, right? He was the son of an Italian immigrant. He dropped out of high school early because of economic circumstances in his family. And his first job was actually driving a delivery truck. And he ended his career, even though he started his career driving a delivery truck, ended his career as a manager, all within the same company. And so we would hear about how he was able to create his career and make a better life for his family, not just because of his own hard work, but because of the opportunities that were available to him. And those opportunities included things like working at a company that valued his experience, that gave him the chance to build his skills and advance within his career. Those opportunities included things like taking advantage of public programs that were available to him. So public housing programs, taking advantage of public education programs for his family, but also for himself in terms of adult education. And all of those opportunities were important. And what I appreciate and value about that story is that, it shows what's possible when we give people opportunities throughout their life. But it also shows why equity has to be essential to expanding opportunity. The doors that were opened for my grandfather were closed to other people, and they were closed to other people based on race, gender, and zip code. And so if we're serious about creating an opportunity for everyone to have success in their careers, in their lives, we need to make sure that opportunity truly exists for everyone. And so that has fueled some of my passion for this work.
I could feel it, Brooke. I can feel it over the screen. And I tell you, you just resonated with me on so many levels. Let me ask this question.
Yeah.
I know the answer, but those that are listening and watching this may not know the answer.
Yeah.
Help us understand. You talked about so much social, economic, upward mobility, the vision that your grandfather had. I would imagine from the jobs that he first took, he built a level of skill that led him towards ultimately becoming a manager and overseeing the livelihoods and the mission and vision of that organization. Mm-hmm. But it started with a skill. And I will tell you, I have so many conversations with individuals that hear the word skill and wonder what it means.
Yeah.
And trying to put that in the same context as credential. Okay, I understand a degree, but you're now telling me I can obtain a skill. Can you help unpack this for the general public? What should they understand about the difference perhaps between skill attainment and credential advancement?
Yeah. So credentials ultimately, and I would say degrees are a form of credentials, right? But there's plenty forms of credentials, everything from a certificate to a license to apprenticeship, etc. Credentials should really signal and validate a set of skills that people have, right? And so when we think about the skills that are required in today's labor market that also help people build their careers, part of what we're talking about are technical skills that are really specific to an occupation, right? So think about somebody who draws your blood when you go to the doctor's office. That person has a very particular skill that they've learned, oftentimes through a training program, or somebody who's operating a piece of advanced machinery in manufacturing. That person has a very specific skill. Welding, those are technical skills that are absolutely important and that oftentimes are imparted through particular training programs. Digital skills have become a huge part of the conversation. We did a study with the Federal Reserve Bank a few years ago that showed that 92% of all jobs across industries, across geographies, across other types of skill level required at least one digital skill, right? And so when I'm talking about digital skills, I'm talking about foundational skills like ability to use email, simple spreadsheets, time cards, those kinds of things, or industry specific skills, right? Like being a bookkeeper, you probably have to know how to use something like QuickBooks. Manufacturing workers use AutoCAD. And so those digital skills are oftentimes now both foundational in nature and occupation specific. And we're seeing more and more of that in the way that training programs are delivered. And then the final piece I would raise up are what we call durable skills, right? And these are skills like critical thinking and problem solving, collaboration, creativity. And those have always been important, but they're becoming even more essential as workers are being asked to adapt to new technology in the workplace, AI, et cetera. And by the way, those are skills that being in a diverse classroom and a diverse training environment, our workplace, are developed through the diversity of different people in the classroom.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Let me ask you this follow-up.
Yeah.
What do you believe is maybe some of the, I would say, misunderstood aspects as we think about the American workforce challenge? So we understand, okay, there's a need to put more people to work. These people, in order to put them to work, need skills.
Yeah.
The relationship between skill attainment and meeting workforce needs. What do you believe that those that are watching and listening to this need to understand, and you often perhaps come across a misunderstanding when it comes to this relationship?
Yeah, I think one of the misunderstandings is that people don't want to build their skills, or that it's just on an individual to be responsible for that on their own, right? And in fact, I am talking to students and workers that are in skill building programs, training programs, community college programs, who are pushing through to achieve their goals and aspirations, even when systems are not always set up to support them. And so we have a number of people in this country that are using skills training to pursue opportunities, but we don't always have the systems and structures that have been built to support them, right? And we see this in the way that we treat workforce development and skills training. It's oftentimes considered a second chance system for people who are considered, and I think incorrectly considered, to have, fallen short the first time in school or at some time in their career. And in fact, that's a really misguided view. Our economy is changing. We have to develop our skills all of the time. And so we should be treating it as a first choice investment, and we should be making investments and systems and structures that support people who are working to build their skills so that they can achieve their dreams and, build the career that they want.
This episode of Discovering Your Mission is brought to you by the EDU Ledger, a leading publication committed to advancing the conversations shaping today's higher education landscape. From innovative practices to policy insights and leadership perspectives, the EDU Ledger brings clarity to the issues surrounding educational opportunity that matter most. To stay informed and engaged, visit theeduledger.com. Now, let's get to today's conversation. One of the pieces, narratives, information, stances, you name it, just the platform that National Skills Coalition stands on is the advancement, at least as I understand it, you correct me if I'm wrong, Brooke, but the advancement of skills-based hiring.
Yeah.
And I would say that my generation, and probably working backwards, it was about, do you have a certain degree? That degree was to open a door. But now I get this feel, and I've written about this as well, that society, America, is trying to figure out how to get people into these jobs, these vacancies, at a much faster pace, which then leans itself towards skills-based trainings that are faster and more streamlined to get these people to work. Can you break down for this audience, what is skills-based hiring?
Yeah, that's a great question. So skills-based hiring is typically the idea that you're hiring people based on a set of skills and experience that they have, not just based on holding a degree, and in particular a 4-year degree, right? And I want to step back and say, degrees are important. Higher education and all forms of higher education is a path to economic mobility, but we have an opportunity to think about the traditional path to a 4-year degree and beyond, and alternative paths that we should be investing in and that should support economic mobility just as much. And that's oftentimes what's talked about when we're talking about skills-based hiring, right? And so it's thinking about, the types of skills and experience you have and how we can uplift those things so that talent who may be overlooked can be tapped, and so that people can pursue their skills. And I would say we're also in a place in our economy, particularly with technological change and AI, where for any of us, regardless of the degrees or credentials that we have, we're going to be in a place of continuous learning and continuous upskilling to be able to adapt as the labor market changes, as the skills that are required in a changing labor market come to bear. And so we can no longer think about education as once and done. You go and get your education and then you go into the workforce. We want to be thinking about continuous learning and continuous skilling over time, and be supporting people of all backgrounds and all educational experiences in that pursuit, not just people who've had the chance to earn a degree.
Here goes a question for you, Brooke.
Yeah.
I know how I feel about this. Is skills-based education just a community college thing? Does this also apply to universities?
Yeah, it's interesting. So four-year universities aren't my area of expertise, but certainly we are seeing, I think, more of this in higher education, including four-year universities all the time when it comes to experiential learning and other forms of work-based learning. And I'll just give you an example from my personal experience. I went to a four-year university, and a lot of the key skills that I built when I entered the workplace, but also the social networks that I gained, and the experience that I gained through internships. And those internships were available to me in a few different regards. One, they were paid because I was working another job that I had to work, and there was no way I could take an internship if it wasn't paid, right? So they were paid,
Sure.
And that really allowed me to have that work-based learning experience. Two, they were available to me through a career counselor at my college. I had no sense of where to start with something like that, despite the fact that I had worked since I was 15. When I was thinking about what I wanted to do in my career, how I wanted to apply my education, I was lucky to have a professor and a career counselor who both helped me figure out what was available, helped me make those social connections, think about how to build a resume, how to show up in the workplace as an intern, how to look for paid opportunities, and even how to get my transportation paid because I couldn't afford the train fare from my college to the internship. And so all of that was made possible for me in a four-year setting. And I think that community and technical colleges have been innovators in thinking about how you piece together all of those resources for students, regardless of what kind of their program they're in. And there's a lot that we could learn from all of the innovative work across the higher ed spectrum based on the work that community colleges have done about work-based learning and connecting college and career.
Brooke, if we were able to get every college and university president in one room,
Yeah.
and you were in front of the mic, you got on stage, what do we need to know? What is it that you want to make sure that presidents and vice presidents and educators and provosts and trustees, but if we were all in this room for the future, discussing the future of our education, from your lens, from your point of view, what do you want us to know?
I think one of the biggest things that I would say are that students' experiences and voices and needs are essential to be heard. We can solve a lot of the problems that we're looking to solve by being in conversation with students themselves. And by being in conversation with students themselves, we can get a fuller picture of who today's students are, their diversity of needs, their diversity of aspirations, and how to make sure that the educational programs that are offered to them really help them meet their goals and find value, whether that's, taking a first step in their career or continuing on to further education or both of those things. So I think, solving these challenging problems with students, not just for them, is one of the key things that I would say. And I think that's where we have uncovered a lot of the innovation that we see in the field. And then the other thing I would say is, as a policy person, we need to be hearing from institutional leaders about what needs are on the ground. It's one thing to set a big policy change or change a law, as we just did with Workforce Pell. It's another thing to be able to implement that law with fidelity toward its goals and in a way that really moves forward economic opportunity and equity. And so the work isn't done at passing the policy. The work happens in implementation with institutions. And part of the way that you make that implementation successful is hearing from the students and institutional leaders at the start and mobilizing to inform the policy. So that's something we always are looking to do, right? Listening to students and learners, what their needs and goals are, including them in understanding how we can make policies better to meet their needs and goals, and listening to institutional leaders to understand what their experiences are on the ground, where policy creates barriers and where policy can help bring good practice to scale.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Brooke, I'm going to work to fit two more questions in here. My next to last question is, what gives you the most hope about the future of work and learning in this country?
Yeah, something that gives me the most hope, and I'll go back to something I said at the beginning, is talking to the people that I see who are doing this work every day. I mean, the students that we work with in our Voices for Skills network, which is a network of students, learners, and workers who are in training and then are advocating for policies based on their own expertise and perspectives, are incredible. These are incredible people who are raising families, who have a set of goals, who are balancing raising their families with school and their long-term career goals, and oftentimes working a job or two while they're doing it all. And the fact that they are continuing to pursue their dreams and goals in systems that are not always designed for them gives me hope. I have a lot of hope with small businesses who are part of our Business Leaders United effort. These are small businesses that are engaged in their local communities, that are hiring from their local communities, and that are investing in their own workforce. And they need policymakers to do the same so that their efforts can be scaled. And then I have hope in institutional leaders like yourself and practitioners who are doing this work and who are spending their own time, effort, and careers and devoting that to creating opportunity for other people. That all gives me hope, and I feel like it's our responsibility, my responsibility, but our organization's responsibility as a policy coalition to make sure that all of that is translating into better policy in the ways that I've mentioned. And we have a skills summit every year, which is an effort for people from across the country to come together and to share their own personal experiences from their communities on the ground with policymakers to educate them on the importance of this movement. And the fact that we're going to have hundreds of people coming to DC in a few weeks to do that gives me hope.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, Brooke, we're at the final question that I have for you on today. You know, the name of the show is called Discovering Your Mission. And it's an opportunity to really get into the behind the scenes of these key leaders like yourself around the country that are leading the work. And so my final question to you is could you please share with us, what is your personal mission statement and why?
Yeah, I think this has kind of been the theme of our conversation so far, but my personal mission statement is to fight for everyone to have the opportunity to pursue their dreams and build a better life for themselves. And I believe that everyone deserves an investment in their potential. So that's why I show up to do the work that I do every day.
I love it. I've really enjoyed my time with you on today. Everyone, once again, Brooke DeRenzis, the CEO of National Skills Coalition. Brooke, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. This was such a lovely conversation, and I really appreciate everything you're doing, and you're inviting me to be here with you.
Absolutely. Take care. What an extraordinary and timely conversation with Brooke DeRenzis. What stood out to me most was not just her command of national workforce policy, but the deep humanity behind it. You could hear it in the way she talked about her grandfather, about working families, about students, about the dignity that comes from being seen, supported, and given the chance to grow. Let me leave you with 3 powerful takeaways from today's episode. First, skills are the foundation of economic freedom. Brooke reminded us that skills, technical, digital, durable, are what allow people to move, adapt, and advance in a changing economy. Credentials should validate skills, but skills are what truly create opportunity. In today's world, learning is no longer something we do once. It is something we do for life. Second, working learners are the heart of the American story. Across this country, millions of people are raising families, holding down jobs, and still showing up to class because they believe in a better future. They're not asking for shortcuts. However, they are asking for systems that respect their realities. Community colleges, technical colleges, and workforce programs are not second chance institutions. They are first choice engines of possibility. And third, equity is not a slogan. It is a strategy for national prosperity. When talent is locked by race, income, or geography, we all lose. When opportunity is open, communities grow, businesses thrive, and families build generational stability. Brooke made it clear, investing in people is not charity. It is how strong economies are built. And here's what I personally want you to take away from today. No matter where you are listening from, no matter what season of life you are in, your future is not defined by where you started. It is shaped by the skills you build, the learning you pursue, and the courage you bring to your own growth. Every single one of us has something valuable to offer this world. The question is whether we will keep showing up, keep learning, and keep believing in what is possible. I want to thank the EDU Ledger for sponsoring this episode and for amplifying voices that are shaping the future of education, workforce, and leadership across this country. And if today's conversation stirred something in you, if it made you think differently about your own mission, I invite you to keep going. Visit itsdrmordecai.com for more conversations, insights, and tools to help you live with intention, lead with purpose, and build the future you deserve. Until next time, stay grounded in your mission and never stop investing in yourself and in others.